kind of a law of the inflation.
I'm a historic figure.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health. Disinformation and refuse to take a COVID vaccine.
Someone thought it would be a good idea for John Fetterman to introduce Joe Biden. KJP calls herself an historic figure. Joe Rogan versus the entire world / a couple people on his team about this whole vaccine thing, and a whole lot more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Ooh, the dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Monday, June 19th, the year of our Lord 2023. Juneteenth, don't you know? I have some thoughts on that. We'll get to it in just a quick second. But holy cow, the internet is going nuts over whether or not people should debate. If you missed this story, we're going to go deep on it. Joe Rogan is in the center of it. And people just don't like debating, which is freaking fascinating. But I want to get to this first. It is Juneteenth, June 19th, when the final slaves in Texas were notified that they were free after the end of the Civil War. This is an interesting thing. As an American who does not like slavery, I am pro-acknowledging the fact that Juneteenth is an important and significant day. Here's the thing, though. It is now a federally recognized holiday, and some of you might not have to go to work today because of that. And that is my freaking problem with this. I have no problem at all whatsoever, and I'm curious in the comment section if you think this, I have no problem whatsoever acknowledging the day that the last slaves were freed in the country. I believe in Texas. I forget the year specifically, but it is significantly after the Civil War ended because, information took a long time to get places. I have no problem acknowledging that day. The problem that I have is the government, partisan government in particular, creating holidays in order to garner one side of the vote and therefore giving themselves another freaking day off. And this is not the first time. Columbus Day. Anyone heard of Columbus Day? Now the embattled holiday that's being trying to change it into Indigenous People Day, whatever it is, I don't know. Columbus Day, when it was instituted, was an homage to the Italians, and specifically the Italian voter. In hindsight, did you really need to celebrate Columbus with a federal freaking holiday? No, probably not. Columbus wasn't Lincoln, he wasn't George Washington, he wasn't Martin Luther King Jr., he wasn't any of the super important figures that probably warrant a day of recognition. If you're Italian watching this, I'm sorry, that's just factually true. The party in power was trying to gain the support of Italian voters and said, all right, Columbus Day. In the same token, St. Patrick's Day, obviously not a federal holiday that is taken off, but federally recognized, was an attempt to garner Irish voters to say, hey, we care about you, the Irish. This is St. Patrick's Day. If you look in Ireland, yeah, they have St. Patrick's Day, but it's nowhere near what it is in America. And obviously that's a cultural thing that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the government. But it's the government saying, we want your votes. And when Joe Biden made Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday, that's exactly what they were doing here. Again, am I against am I against anybody celebrating the significance of a very historically important day? Absolutely freaking not. What I am against is the government taking more of my money by taking more effing time off. That's what I'm so freaking mad about, that Juneteenth is now a federally recognized holiday. It has nothing to do with the actual day of recognition itself. It's the freaking government giving themselves more time off. Can you imagine if you did that at your work? Can you imagine if I was able to do that? Today is bologna sandwich day. I take this off. It's a federally recognized holiday, but I still get paid. Can you imagine that? Because the government salaries don't go down. They just get an extra day off. Does that infuriate anyone? And specifically, it's an attempt by a Democrat president to say that I did this for black voters, an attempt to get black voters on his side. If you don't know this about the polling, it's so freaking fascinating how politics move. But Democrats are kind of like now the like weird authoritarian no freedom party, and increasingly black people and Hispanics / Latinos are not cool with that, and they're shifting over to the Republican Party. And so in an attempt to try and keep black voters on the Democrat side and keep them a reliable voting bloc, which Democrats have relied on for decades, Joe Biden says, we're going to make Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday where everybody gets the day off. It's stupid freaking politics and lazy freaking government and banks and all the people that get today off, unlike the rest of us who are probably, I don't know, having to go into work. So again, to sum it up, I do not at all in any way, shape, or form not want to acknowledge a very, very significant day in U.S. history. And also, the government shouldn't be able to freaking take it off and steal more taxpayer dollars. It'd be one thing if every time the government added a new holiday, the pay of federal government bureaucrat employees got cut by one day. I'm fine with that. Actually, let's take most of the year off. Let's take it. Let's have a 6 month sabbatical every single year, where government workers don't get paid but have to take time off. How about that? But that's not what happens, especially not what happened on Juneteenth, being a federal holiday. Yeah, a lot of people in the comment section saying the same thing. Recognizing the holiday, recognizing the significance of the day is great, but also it's just pandering to the left. Yeah, that's what it is. Speaking of pandering to the left, I want you to look at this. I thought this was funny. This is probably an end of the show clip, but it's not. We're playing it at the beginning because I thought it was, I don't know, I'm sure there's more people generally watching at the beginning, so I wanted to play it here. Whose idea was this? There's a lot of stuff to be bad about. There's a lot of, stuff that's infuriating, and I get all of that. I like to generally take a more lighthearted approach to this, and ask the question in this particular instance: whose idea was it to have the President of the United States, who is addled in his mind, be introduced by a guy who makes the President of the United States look like a spry 25-year-old PhD student in John Fetterman? Now, is it sad what happened to John Fetterman? This is one of those other things. This is the same kind of functional agreement you have to have in your head as Juneteenth. I all about the recognition of the day, effing federal government pandering. Two thoughts held in your head at the same time. Same thing with John Fetterman. I have two thoughts held in my head at the same time. It is incredibly sad what happened to him. I don't want that to happen to anybody, let alone people that I disagree with politically, have a stroke and be not able to function or speak. I don't want that to happen. I don't care if it's John Fetterman. I don't care who it is. I don't want them to be physically addled by I want to say unpreventable, because probably lived a lifestyle that caused a stroke, but we'll leave that there. I don't want him to have a stroke. At the same time, he's a sitting U.S. senator. He's a member of the most important deliberative body on planet Earth and can't think. Are we supposed to just ignore that? Anyways, I'm going to play this clip for you. I know there's a bunch of people. Just play the clip. I know. Just setting the groundwork here. Somebody had this stupid idea for John Fetterman to introduce Joe Biden. Watch this.
And now I'm standing next to the president again, next to a collapsed bridge here. And he is here to commit to work with the governor and the delegation to make sure that we get this fixed quick, fast as well, too. This is a president that is committed to infrastructure. Yeah, and then on top of that, the dual law of the inflation bill that is going to make sure that there's going to be bridges all across America getting rebuilt.
So here's the thing with this. There's a bunch of reporting on this saying, well, we knew what he was saying. He was trying to say infrastructure and trying to hit to one specific bill. So we all knew that, and he just kind of fumbled over the words. The problem is most people don't know that. The problem is that most people in America that see this clip have no idea of any of the specifics that they're talking about. I don't have any idea of the specifics that they're talking about. I could make out the word he was trying to say is infrastructure, but the dude can't think. And also, look, I'm not a person that dresses up mostly. I wear a tie once a year, and it's to Mar-a-Lago when there's an event. Anyways, I wear a tie once a year. But I'm also not a sitting U.S. senator. If I was, I probably would wear a tie more, at the very least a suit jacket. I wouldn't dress down to look like a hobo that you found on the side of the road introducing or even engaging with the President of the United States of America. Actually, come to think of it, the only time I've worn a suit and a tie in the last, 8 years outside of my wedding happened to be around Donald Trump. That's interesting. Wow. Apparently, he's the only one that will elicit me wearing a tie. But there was a couple times where I didn't. Anyways, dude looks like a bum. And also, again, you want to say, well, he's just kind of the head of the office in which he holds a Senate seat, and there's people that are running the office, and we can trust them. The people of Pennsylvania elected this guy, and we can trust him to kind of steer the ship generally, and kind of have more people do the specifics. Well, the people that did the specifics had the bright idea to put this guy up in front with the President of the United States and make himself and the party as a whole look bad. So in what way is that a good idea? Moving on and rolling on to something else that I thought was freaking funny and fascinating. Before we get to this, we're going to spend a decent amount of time on this Joe Rogan thing. So I wanted to get you to this clip. KJP was on a podcast talking about her year, I think, as the White House press secretary, and said something that you shouldn't think. Maybe you can recognize it, but it shouldn't be in your brain as a constant thing. And two, if it is, you don't say it out loud. This has been my problem with KJP. She's just not good. It's not I don't agree with her policy-wise. I don't agree with her politics. I don't agree with Joe Biden, and I don't agree with the executive branch really as a whole at the moment. But at the same time, she's just bad at her job. It'd be one thing. It's like, imagine your rival sports team. You really like a sports team. Let's just say you like the Lakers, right? You're a big Lakers fan. And, you got the big rivalry between the Lakers and the Boston Celtics. You can really, really dislike the Boston Celtics if you're a Lakers fan. But also, they've got some pretty good players. They've got some pretty good solid players over there on the team that I really, really dislike. But at the same time, if the Boston Celtics had horrible players, you would go, what gives? Yeah, I don't like them because of the rivalry, but also they're just not good at basketball. That's how I feel about KJP. But it was evidenced even further when she went on this podcast, kind of commemorating or talking about her year in the position that she is wholly and unbelievably unqualified for. When she said this, watch this, and we will discuss on the other side. Check it out.
A year in this role, there's been a couple of things that has made me incredibly proud. Many things have made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day. But this is also a historic making administration because of this president.
Wow. I am a historic figure. Who says that? Again, like I said, that's something that you shouldn't think. Maybe you can understand it. I don't actually think she's a historic figure. I don't think. I think once America progresses, and I'm using that word intentionally, progresses to the point where, literally the whole race thing doesn't the race and the gender thing does not matter at all. She's historic in that she's the first gay black woman to hold that office. That is the only way in which KJP is historic or of note in any way, shape, or form. So, that being said, and with that, I don't think, once America has progressed past all of that sort of stuff, which I hope they get to soon, none of that's going to matter, and it will relinquish her from the bonds of history books. But wow, who says that? Oh, that's funny. This is this is ill-advised. I shouldn't bring this up on the screen here, but I'm going to. Dwight says, she's correct. She will go down in history as an idiot and the worst ever in her job. That's just funny. Oh, you guys are... Janet says, what a boob. Oh, man. That's funny. Wow, there's a bunch of other stuff like this. But yeah, I don't consider KJP a historic figure. And it's weird that she considers herself that. And even weirder that she would say it out loud. Like, that would be like, I, the voice of a generation, come to you today on this auspicious internet talk show. And I said that to everybody in serious tones. I've said that as a joke. I've never actually... I gotta move on. This is stupid. Moving on to this. I think this is one of the most fascinating kind of stories, but also just like what our time is right now. All right, you know what? Let's use this, Chiron, to set this up. All right, to set this up, and I'm going to let you know here at the onset so that you can tune out if you hate this. We are going to chronologically explain a story. Is that the right word? I feel like KJP and Joe Biden all in one right now. We're going to give you a timeline of a story that happened on Twitter over the weekend. And if you're like, you roll your eyes at Twitter, that's fine. I get it. But this is freaking so much bigger than Twitter. And it is a sign of where we all are. Politically speaking, culturally speaking, willingness to engage with each other. Joe Rogan is one of the most popular people. And you know, I get it. People don't want to talk about Joe Rogan again. But what's happening with him and some of the more freedom-oriented voices in this country versus some of the, I don't want to say establishment-y because they're not really establishment, but they have the mindset of the establishment in which, well, we don't need to talk about why we do things. We just do things because we're better than you. That whole thing, the dichotomy between those two factions of people, and that spreads out to any and all people in this country, is fascinating to watch. So last week, RFK Jr., who is running for president as a Democrat and polling extraordinarily high for a person in the party of the current president running for president against an incumbent. He's got like 25% of the Democrat vote, which is crazy high, but is getting no steam whatsoever. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the stuff that RFK says to me sounds like that's pretty crazy. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that he says that is like kind of realistic. Like he went to the border and was like, yeah, we should stop all of this madness happening at the border. Yeah, dude, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. If you're on that side, that's great. Good for you. But anyways, Joe Rogan had RFK Jr. on his podcast last week, and they were talking about the COVID jabs among just shots in general, and big pharma and this and that and the other thing. And to be honest with you, I haven't watched it. I've heard it all. I get it. I get all the arguments. I understand, both sides of that argument, and I make my own decisions, on a issue by issue basis when it comes to healthcare and all that stuff. That's fine. But anyways, there's one scientist, and I don't know what he does as a scientist. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast before, then came out and criticized the entirety of the podcast with Joe Rogan and RFK, which is fine. You're allowed to criticize that. But then what happened next is freaking fascinating. Joe Rogan then put out this tweet, and I'll read it. I'll make it big here. So this guy, this Professor Peter Hotz, said Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation. It's really just awful. I don't know who that guy is, he tagged. And from all the other online attacks I'm receiving of this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense. Then Joe Rogan responded and said, Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I'm offering you $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit. This is representative of so many other things, and I'm sure you've dealt with this sort of stuff in your real life. This is somebody making a claim. In this case, this doctor/scientist making a claim, and then a person who believes they have, one, information, two, just an open mind, saying, oh, okay, would you like to explain that claim that you just made? I'll give you a platform. I will give you whatever you want to explain the claim that you just made. And then that person who made the claim saying no. Have you experienced this in real life? Talking about trans women are women. What is a woman? What is that? Is that something you've experienced in your everyday life? The Trump colluded with Russia. Really, what happened in that? Would you like to explain that? And ultimately, it comes down to people just believing things and not wanting to back them up in any way, shape, or form. So Joe Rogan offers this guy $100,000. Throughout the evening, that money goes up and up and up. And I think the last I saw it was at like $600,000 with a bunch of people jumping in, including Elon Musk, including Bill Ackman, who is a financier in New York, hedge fund guy, bagajillionaire. Elon Musk weighed in, wanted to see it. And this guy is now refusing to go on Joe Rogan's podcast. Now, here's an interesting clip of the last time this guy was on Rogan's podcast, talking about health and vaccines and shots and all this sort of stuff. This is going to give you a glimpse of who this guy is, well, and what he believes in specifically. And then we'll go into some of the other stuff of what he's done since then, since this whole Twitter thing blowing up and who's taking whose side and all that sort of stuff. Watch this and we'll discuss on the other side.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
How often?
What?
How often?
How often do I steal a bag of chips or something like that?
How often do you eat garbage?
I don't know. No, hopefully not every day, but
hopefully not every day.
Yeah, maybe a couple of times a week. That's what with Rachel, my daughter with autism. That's like our thing is to go to the it's called the burger joint or to Shake Shack to get a cheeseburger. We'll sneak some fries. So
you
living large, we call it.
Like that mouth pleasure so much, you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of health.
I am, yeah. I have to concede that's the case.
Well, I don't have to tell you, but there's a large body of data that connects poor diet to a host of diseases. Mm-hmm. That seems like a crazy decision for a guy in your line of work.
There you go. Sometimes the Sometimes it's not all brain. It's something else.
But I mean, if you ate healthy food, I mean, the thing is, your body starts craving healthy food. You start feeling
No
positive
question,
results.
no question about it.
That's okay. So that's a little bit of that. There's a bunch more of that. You can go watch the rest of that video. It's on Joe Rogan's Twitter account right now, and it's fascinating. But this guy's saying, no, I'm a big time vaccine health, big time shot will give you health, and he actually done some pretty good work. I'm not going to disparage the guy's entire career because I think he's from what I've read, he's helped in sending a bunch of sort of medical aid to countries who don't otherwise have it. So there's that. He's a big time health guy, but also is not really taking care of himself, as Joe Rogan would say. This is a crazy decision that you're making in your line of work. Why? But that's the guy who won't debate what's his face, RFK, on Joe Rogan's podcast. So Elon Musk jumped into the mix. This pot of charity money went up to like $600,000. Elon Musk said maybe Peter hates charity, which I thought was funny. But then there's people like this. So this guy goes on Twitter and says, I will go on your show, but I won't debate RFK Jr. And everybody says, why? Including, and then this guy jumps to his defense. He says, and just trust me, I understand that reading tweets on this show is kind of just a weird thing, but like I'm trying to convey a huge segment of society and how they look at the world and how they operate. This guy named Tom Nichols, I don't know who he is, but he's got a decent amount of Twitter followers, says no medical professional should ever agree to do this, the debate that is on Rogan's podcast. Never. It elevates the conspiracy guy, demeans the medical professional, and will only convince the kooks out there that RFK is right because a real doctor took time to debate him. Never debate a conspiracy theorist. To which Joe Rogan replied, that would be a great suggestion if you could assure that the industry you are representing wasn't completely captured by heartless monsters who have a history of some of the biggest criminal fines in human history because their deception has cost hundreds of thousands of people their lives. That's a good point. It would also be a great suggestion if the industry you were defending didn't occasionally look at human beings as an opportunity to generate insane wealth regardless of the tragic consequences. But you can't do that, so maybe it would be a good idea to have an effing debate. Holy cow. Now, so what you have are two factions of types of people who were willing to talk about things, regardless if they come out ahead or not, or don't want to talk about things and don't want to debate at all. Look, I've said on this show many times, any main figure type person, if AOC has a standing invitation to come to the show. I don't know why she ever would, because it wouldn't do her any good. But anybody who wants to defend their ideas and refuses, so anybody who has ideas that they are unwilling to defend are less credible than people who have bad ideas that they are willing to defend in the eyes of people who don't know any better. And that's not demeaning of people. It's just, if you are in a field and you claim to be an expert in that field but refuse to defend the ideas that you hold, the outward culture, the outward society, the people looking in are going to see that type of person and then see the person who, maybe has some good ideas, maybe some bad ideas, but are willing to defend them in front of an audience and see, well, the person that's willing to actually jump into the ring, that seems like the more sensible person. Why is that other person who claims all of these big accolades and resume and all of that sort of stuff, why are they not wanting to participate? I don't get it. Yeah. That's, I think, the situation we find ourselves in this. This other guy, again, instead of going on, and also, too, if you think the guy is that dumb, it should be pretty easy to put him in his place, right? Like, I don't know, name a big fighter. Khabib Nurmagomedov, hugely successful MMA fighter. If the money was there, you think he would turn down a fight with literally anybody in the world. Wow, that's a bad example because he retired because it's an emotional thing. The bottom line is, if anybody's willing to have a conversation, they look more credible. Gavin Newsom got a ton of credit for going on Hannity. I thought a lot of what he said was dumb, but he went and defended his ideas in the lion's den. The fact that this guy won't do that should tell you something about his ideas. Really quickly, watch this clip too, because he goes on MSNBC and talks about going on MSNBC and other news channels as why he shouldn't go on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's kind of interesting to see how the mind of these types of people work. Check it out.
Tend to save lives across the board, do they not? That's what the peer-reviewed evidence overwhelmingly shows, does it not? And people are dying right now from COVID still because the evidence on COVID vaccines' efficacy is being ignored or shouted down on social media.
Something really terrible, and that is during our COVID pandemic, I have a new book coming out that basically says 200,000 Americans needlessly perished because they believed the anti-vaccine disinformation and refused to take a COVID vaccine during our Delta wave and BA1 Omicron wave in 2021-22 after vaccines were widely available. So the point is, anti-vaccine disinformation, it's always done a lot of damage and harm, but now it's a lethal force in the United States. And that's why we have to have that discussion. And I offered to come and go on Joe Rogan again. I've been on a couple of times and have that discussion with him, but not to turn it into the Jerry Springer show with having RFK Jr. on.
It's sad because I said I'm so fed up with the debate me, because it's not really about the debate. If it was about finding out information, as you said, you've already written about vaccines and autism. You've already spoken and written about COVID vaccines. I think you've been on MSNBC and other channels hundreds of times since the start of the pandemic. People can hear your views and the evidence you bring to this. So they're not actually interested in evidence.
It's actually, that's, there, he has a great point. If you say something once, there's no use in repeating it. Dude, that's politics and that's media as a whole. You know how many times I have to go on stuff and repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again? Because that's part of it. I think it's Orwell that said it might be H.L. Mencken, said the number one duty of smart men might be restating the obvious. I'm misquoting that. But so that's it. I guess the reason that they don't need to go have a discussion with people is because, well, he said it already once. Okay, can you defend it in real time? And honestly, I don't know that RFK Jr. would look good after that podcast. But this guy refuses to do it, which I think elevates the guy who he thinks he's taking down by not debating him or having a conversation with him, wholeheartedly. I think he is elevating instead of diminishing. But such is this whole world of people not wanting to defend what they think and their ideas. But what are you going to do? That'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. It's going to be a wild week. We'll be here tomorrow, but also let's see, Wednesday, I think we'll be here Wednesday, and then Thursday we'll be on the road. Friday we'll be on the road, but I think still doing a show from the road. So we'll see what this week holds. If you're in the Austin area, we'll be there shooting an interesting documentary, actually with Daily Caller, which I'm not sure if I was supposed to say. I don't know what I'm allowed to say yet. But we're shooting an interesting project in Austin Thursday and Friday. So if you happen to be in the area and happen to see us around, come say hi. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Ooh, that's not right. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You'll be able to find me. Social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Facebook and Instagram are kind of the ones we stick to a lot. But appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.